Good afternoon, everyone. So my name, as you know, is Rabia Shah, and along with my colleague Tracy Ajaba, who's also with us on this call, I work at the equipment program at the ALS Society of Canada. We've prepared a slide deck together so that we can share how the equipment program works and how we can help you with your medical equipment needs. So at the end of the presentation, as Melissa mentioned, there is time set aside for questions. If you have any questions that come up during the course of this presentation or otherwise, please put them in the chat and we can address them at the end of the presentation. Okay, let's go. So the ALS Society of Canada, as we are a registered charity, we were founded in 1977, and we receive no government funding for our community services programs. They're in fact solely funded by generous donors in the community who share our vision of a world free of ALS and also believe in our mission, which is to improve the lives of people living with ALS through direct community support, through advocacy, and through investment in research. Now, we provide access to essential assistive devices and equipment through our equipment loan program so that people who are living with ALS can cope up with daily challenges of and communication ability. Sorry, I just wanted to interrupt. There is some background noise. If there's anyone who hasn't muted, can I ask them to mute?
Yes, sorry. Thank you for that, Rabia. Diane, it seems to be coming from you, so I'm not sure if it's either through the phone or your laptop. If you could just hit mute, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so as I was mentioning, we provide access to essential assistive devices through our equipment loan program, which we'll be taking you through for people living in Ontario who've been diagnosed with ALS to cope with their daily challenges. And our hope here is that people can continue to live safely in their homes and retain their independence while they go through the ALS journey. Also, and we'll be covering this in the latter part of our presentation, where eligible, we do also provide through the ALS Canada Equipment Program funding assistance for certain leased and rented equipment. So when we talk about our work, I want to mention here that the ALS Canada, the ALS Society fulfills a very important need in the community, a gap within our current healthcare system. So within the province of Ontario, the current healthcare supports that are available do not adequately address the specific needs of people who live with progressive illness, such as ALS. For example, certain people with ALS may have changing needs. Often their needs evolve, sometimes quickly, and the supports and programs that are available through the standard healthcare system may only support one piece or one type of equipment every few years. There are trials that are available for equipment through home and community care, but they are short-term and limited to often only 2 weeks, after which someone may have to rent or purchase equipment for themselves. So renting and purchasing multiple pieces of equipment is often cost prohibitive for many people in our community. So the ALS Society, by providing loaned equipment free of cost, including the cost of delivery, repair, and pickup, we hope that we help to alleviate some of this financial burden on families that are affected by ALS. So the biggest component of our equipment program is the equipment loan program. So we will go over that first. So the equipment loan program operates within the province of Ontario by the ALS Society. And in order to register for this program or any of our supports, the individual needs to have a confirmed diagnosis of ALS or a related MND. So we do also support certain individuals who have primary lateral sclerosis and Kennedy's disease, and the list is that on, you can find our list on our website. But anyone with a confirmed diagnosis of ALS, and this is confirmed by a neurologist and is resident in the province of Ontario, can register to the ALS Society. We have a very simple registration form that's available online on our website, and it can be filled out by a healthcare professional, but it can also be filled out by the individual themselves or their family member. I want to mention here, because we get asked this a lot, that the confirmed diagnosis does need to be by a neurologist, but it is not necessary that the individual would have gone to an ALS clinic prior to registering. We are just looking for a neurologist to have diagnosed ALS. In order to request equipment, once someone is registered, the process is that we would require an assessment done by a registered healthcare professional, which is most often an occupational therapist or a physiotherapist. Now, I say most often because that would probably be 95% of the cases, but it can be sent in, an assessment and an application can be sent in by someone who is also a member of the registered healthcare community, such as a registered nurse or a physician. Once this registered healthcare professional has done an assessment and assessed someone's current needs for equipment, they will then send us a loan application. As of fall of 2023, we have a new online submission form, which is available on our website. This is very easy to fill out. It has drop-down menus by which the healthcare professional can fill in all the information that we require. So it speeds up the process and it's more efficient. So nothing is lost when in the past where we used to have some faxes and all of that. So it's actually just a process that makes the whole thing more efficient. If the healthcare professional has put in their email and the client, that individual who requires this equipment, their email, there is an immediate email notification that's sent out as soon as that application is successfully submitted. So you know it's in process. Now in 2023, just to give you an idea, we did about 3,300 requests for equipment across Ontario for our clients, and this is not including pickups or repair requests. So these are just the deliveries and exchanges that we did across the province. Now, again, a very commonly asked question that I've put here: what can be requested? So we have an extensive equipment catalog that contains over 40 items in different categories of assistive equipment, such as wheelchairs, such as bathroom equipment, beds and mattresses, lift systems, and ramps. You can find the entire list on our website that I've put up here. And this list of items has been compiled based on feedback that we've received over the years from members of the community, from occupational therapists, from other healthcare professionals. And it's based on items that are most frequently requested and would most benefit people living with ALS and are most in need. So it's a list that we've compiled with some consultation. We only provide one item per type per client, with the exception of slings. And I'll just explain that a little bit. So when I say one item per type per client, so for each individual, we are able to provide one item per the type of need of that item. So for instance, if someone requires a four-wheel walker, we are only able to provide one walker per client based on the OT's request. If someone requires a hospital bed, we're only able to provide one hospital bed per client, and so on. Now, please note that it does mention per type. So, and I've put that here just basically because depending on the need of the equipment, so for instance, bathroom equipment is a very broad category. Within that, there are different items that serve different needs. So for instance, there might be a sliding tub transfer bench, there might be a wheeled commode, both of which serve different purposes and different needs. And so we can provide one of a sliding tub bench and one of a wheeled or shower commode, depending upon your healthcare professional's assessment and the need at that current period of time. I have put in the exception of slings. So we do provide two slings. One is a standard sling and one is a hygiene or a toileting sling. And this is because most slings are made of cloth material. And we wanted to account for the fact that since these are frequently used items, there might be one that might need to be washed. And so the other can be used while that's happening. We only provide equipment that's based on a healthcare professional's applications request. This is because ALS is a complex disease and the needs of someone may evolve and change from time to time. And it's really critical that a healthcare professional has been able to assess what the current need is and what the safety and suitability of that particular piece of equipment is. So it's like a prescription, and we really provide equipment only based on that prescription. Now, we are able to exchange items and we are able to replace items. Exchanges may happen because something is no longer suitable for someone. For example, we have a wide variety of mattresses. And so one mattress that may be used at a particular point in time may no longer be suitable a few months down the road or a year down the road. So we do offer exchanges of different types of items. We also will exchange something if something is not working and does need to be replaced or repaired. However, I do want to caution here that while we try and do our best, we recognize also that exchanges and replacements are costly, and so are deliveries. And so we ask that when you are discussing equipment with your healthcare professional, that you have discussed it thoroughly and you've agreed to receiving that item. You've discussed where it's going to be placed. For instance, what part of the home, is there space, what space needs to be made, and so on and so forth before there is a request for delivery. Now, we may not have all the items that someone with ALS needs to meet their current requirements and so on. And we wish we could provide everything that someone needed, but we are limited with our resources. And so we ask that if there is anything outside of the catalog that you do require, that you consult with your healthcare professional who will be able to guide you towards other options and other funding resources that are available. This is just a slide that I put together of some of the commonly requested items that we do get. As you can see, the top one is a hospital bed and a mattress, and you'll see an overbed table in the same line. The overbed table we recently added a couple of years ago, again, based on feedback from our healthcare professionals and the community. We have several mobility items that range from walkers. We have four-wheel walkers and two-wheel walkers. We have a variety of wheelchairs, including for different purposes. For instance, transport wheelchairs for short trips, for example, to and from a clinic, to manual wheelchairs, and then also some electric wheelchairs. With spring around the corner, we also find that people request a lot of scooters. So again, three-wheel and four-wheel scooters are available in our loan cupboard. We have lift systems, and they can range from lift systems such as the Hoyer lift that you'll see in the bottom corner of your screen, to also easy lift chairs, which are commonly requested. Bathroom items, I've put two pictures, but we have other bathroom items also. And this is a wheeled commode and a sliding tub transfer bench. And so we provide those again. We have a variety of cushions. Cushions are usually provided for wheelchairs, but on occasion, depending on availability, we will provide cushions also if you do need them for a lift chair and so on. Slings we've already covered. So we provide two types of slings, again, based on the occupational therapist or the physiotherapist prescription. Now, I wanted to talk a little bit about the program and what we provide, but what I also wanted to cover was a little bit of the steps so that you're aware of what happens at the back end, really, when your occupational therapist sends in their application. So when an application is sent in by an occupational therapist, it's reviewed by an equipment team member. We are a small but mighty team, and we are all dedicated to helping support our community. And every application is reviewed by a team member, and then it's processed with a work order that we will send to a vendor locally, who will then arrange delivery. Now, from time to time, that equipment might not be available at the local vendor. If it is not available at the local vendor, we look for it across 6 storage spaces, which we rent, and we'll look for it to see where we can find it in some of our storage locations. Once we've located where that equipment is, for instance, we might have a request for a lift chair in Belleville, and there might be one available that particular size and prescription in Ottawa. So we will then arrange for that equipment to be shipped. The vendor in Ottawa will package it, and then we have a shipping company that we use to ship that equipment to the vendor in Belleville, who will then arrange the delivery. Now, we work with over 20 equipment vendors across the province. Some of them are larger, some are smaller, but we've carefully selected these equipment vendors based on their expertise in setting up, in installing, in repairing equipment, and also obviously for their experience with medical equipment. So we have carefully selected these vendors, and they are not ALS Canada employees. They are simply third-party vendors that do perform the service for us, that deliver it, equipment, pick it up, and repair ALS Canada loaned equipment for a certain fee. Now, every delivery or pickup that is involved can cost anywhere from $100 to $400. Now, this may depend on, for instance, the number of the labor involved, whether there's installation required, just setting up a hospital bed or uninstalling something, and of course, the distance traveled. But I've put it here just to point out that we do our very best to provide equipment to clients, to people who need it, when they need it. But we're very cognizant that the delivery and pickup costs do range, and they can be quite exorbitant. So it's always useful to discuss what equipment that you need and what equipment you have agreed on to receive before sending in that request. We don't want to be delivering equipment to someone who and then not have that person accept it or refuse that equipment. Now, when the local vendor has received the equipment, they will call you directly. So it's not done through us. They will call directly because they have their own schedule, and they will schedule a time that works for yourself and them to deliver it depending on your location. We do request that someone be there to receive that delivery in that time frame that they scheduled. Usually what we'll say is it's about a 4-hour window that you should schedule for someone to be home so they can receive that piece of equipment. Now, a couple of other things that I think are relevant here. One of the things is that when you receive equipment, we highly recommend that you call your occupational therapist and let them know that you have received this equipment so they can schedule a visit. Once they know that you've received equipment, and they can come and do an assessment and see how that equipment is actually working for you, they also should be advising you on specific setup as well as safety training that's required. So we do advise that it is the OT who will advise on the specific setup of equipment as well as safety training. For instance, for lift systems is extremely critical, but also for things such as, to give you an example, for something like a scooter, your OT would be able to advise you on perhaps some of the suitable speed settings and some of the safety features. And they may also advise, they may also have you do a test drive to see how you are doing with that particular piece of equipment and how you're handling it. So because of these reasons, it's really critical to involve the OT once you've received your equipment. Sometimes an OT will request that they do a joint visit at delivery. It's quite rare, but it does happen. But usually, as you know, with the strain on the healthcare system, it's often hard to schedule an OT to come in at the same time as the vendor, and you know that we want to deliver that equipment to you. So it's always best to kind of like, once you've received that equipment, to let the OT know that you received it. With the delivery vendor, it's important to review instructions on how, especially if you've got any electrical equipment, so if it's a scooter, a power chair, a Hoyer, it's important to review how to charge that electrical equipment, how frequently you need to charge it, and any basic handling instructions. The vendors cannot advise on safety features. That is something that will be in the purview of the occupational therapist, who can best assess the suitability of that equipment for you at that particular point in time. Again, needs change, suitability changes, so that's where your occupational therapist comes in. If there is an issue with the equipment, please contact us directly. We have our email. This is a distribution list email. So by that, I mean that it doesn't just come to one member of the team, it comes to all members of the team. So that if someone is away at a particular day, someone else will be there to receive that email and can start the request. All right. Next, accessing the ALS Canada loan program. So our vendors and our staff are available during standard business hours. They are not available during weekends and outside of business hours. So if there is an urgent request or something that happens on a weekend or outside standard hours, we do recommend that you call home and community care services, such as your care coordinator, or depending upon the situation, you may have to call emergency services. Repairs and modifications. Again, we try our absolute best to be able to provide people with the equipment that they need and when they need it. We will arrange for repairs and, to an extent, modifications where possible on those pieces of equipment. It does depend on the piece of equipment. They are loaned used pieces of equipment, so it's not always possible to customize it to someone's specific requirements, but we will do our modifications, and obviously we will do repairs wherever we can, so that we can support you. Pickup, when an equipment is no longer being used for a certain period of time, we do kindly request that you please let us know so that we can arrange it for it to be picked up by our vendor. Once it's picked up, it's cleaned, and then it can be provided to someone else living with ALS. If you do require it at a later time, we would consult with your occupational therapist to see the current need, and we can provide that to you at a later time if you need it again. But if you're not using it for an extended period of time, please do reach out to us and let us know so we can arrange pickup. All right. So just a couple of points here. I kind of mentioned them before also, but just kind of, I guess, reminders. Our equipment is all used equipment, and it's been cleaned, it's inspected, and it's set up based on your healthcare professional's request. There is an extensive form where your healthcare professional is telling us details depending on the kind of equipment. So for instance, if there's a wheelchair, there's a very extensive form that they would fill out, helping the vendor to set it up as it would work for yourself. So we do set all of that up, and that's done by a third-party equipment vendor based on the healthcare professional's request. There are limitations, as I've mentioned, to what is available and what we can provide, but we try our very best to accommodate what we can within what is available in our loan catalog. Sometimes there is a longer than normal wait time, and that sometimes happens if we can't find a piece of equipment in the loan cupboard. When that happens, we are proactively working with your healthcare professional and with the vendor to try and figure out possible options and solutions in the meantime. What do we not provide? So we don't provide, and I've put this here Again, we get asked this quite a lot. We don't provide anything outside of our equipment catalog. So recently we've received some queries regarding grab bars, clamps, transfer boards, porch lifts. So I've put them here, but it really can be anything that's not listed in the catalog. We are unable to, unfortunately, provide it. We also only carry standard items that meet the majority of needs of people within our community. So we don't carry bariatric wide beds. Our hospital beds are all standard size. We don't have unusually sized wheelchairs. We carry standard wheelchairs. We're not able to provide more than one of each type of item, with the exception of slings. And we also are unable to provide funding for different items like cutlery, respiratory equipment, medical supplies, and so on. The next point that I want to talk about is small bathroom items. So we talked about the ALS Canada loan cupboard, and we delved quite a bit into it. Within our equipment catalog, we also carry small bathroom items. So small bathroom items, there are 5 of these that we can provide based on prescription, and that includes raised toilet seats, stationary commodes, Versa frames, standard tub benches, and bath chairs. Again, these are based on an application and request sent in by the healthcare professional. But for hygiene reasons, we purchase these items new for every client who needs them. And we purchase them from our vendors directly. So when an application for one of these items comes in, we will purchase it new from our vendors, who will then deliver and install it in the home. Now, these items are items that are purchased for everyone separately based on the request, so they don't return back to the loan cupboard when they're no longer needed. Since they do not need to be returned to the loan cupboard when no longer needed, they can be passed on or donated as you see fit for someone, if you feel there is someone who can benefit from them, but we do not take them back into the loan cupboard, unlike the rest of our loan equipment that we discussed earlier. And now I want to talk about the funding assistance program. So I alluded to this in the beginning of the slides, that we do provide, based on eligibility, we do provide funding for certain leased and rented equipment. So I'm going to talk about that now. ALS Canada provides funding assistance for only 3 specialized items, okay? And these items are, or this funding is, the rental cost of 1 straight stair glide. And just to talk about it a little bit, how this would work is that based on a application request sent in by your healthcare professional, we would have our vendor do an assessment of the home to see if a straight stair glide will work. And based on the information provided by the vendor and the financial eligibility of someone, of the application, of the individual with ALS, we may be able to partly or fully cover the monthly rental costs of this stair glide. So that's one thing that we are able to fund based on whether someone is eligible for that funding or not. We also are able to provide funding, again, based on income, for specialized electric wheelchairs with tilt. Now, these are special customized chairs that are provided through the Assisted Devices program. So it's a complex process by which the healthcare professional would first apply to the Assisted Devices program for that particular approval. And once that item is approved, funding for that is approved, which is about 75% government funding, and the remaining 25% of that item is usually covered by the individual themselves. And that's kind of where we come in, and we will look at the income information that we received, and we can partly or fully fund the client part of that specialized electric wheelchair with tilt. There are some items in there that we do not fund, and usually those are the ones that are also not funded partly by the Assisted Devices Program, but I don't want to delve into too much detail, and that suffice to say that based on income, we can cover part or full cost of the client portion of this specialized electric wheelchair with tilt. Now, we don't provide funding for electric chairs without tilt because we do have them in our loan cupboard along with manual chairs and manual tilt chairs. So we do highly recommend that the healthcare professional trial those chairs from us free of cost before deciding to go to the Assisted Devices Program for such chairs which are readily available. We don't have electric wheelchairs with tilt in our loan cupboard, and that is why we currently offer funding for those. The third one is communication devices. So there are communication devices that can be leased through the centralized equipment pool. Now, these are done through a speech language pathologist, often working in one of the 27 augmentative and assistive I forgot that one, AAC clinics that exist across the province. So they would assess someone's communication needs and trial a communication device. And that communication device goes through a yearly lease. And we are able to provide funding assistance for the yearly lease costs of those communication devices based on income. This funding eligibility that I keep referring to, it is based on income. We do require a notice of assessment to determine what bracket of funding someone would fall under, and I'll just come to that in the next slide. But unlike the rest of our loan program, which is regardless of income, these three items, we are looking at income to determine if we can fund provide funding assistance and the portion of it. So the funding assistance criteria, just put this in. This is available on our website. This is also on the drop-down forms for the funding assistance that the healthcare professional has access to. And I've put this here. If you'd like me to send you this, I'm happy to do that separately as well. But this is on our website. This is sort of criteria based on income, so an individual, and we are looking at the notice of assessment, the latest notice of assessment that has been provided to you by the Canada Revenue Agency. That's the document that we're looking at, and we're looking at total income on those documents, and we're looking to see where someone falls under their funding criteria. So an individual would be someone who is single, widowed or divorced, and then a combined household. We're looking at both the individual as well as their partner, so that could be a spouse or a common law partner, and we're looking at, and if that's the case, we're looking at their combined household income, and so combining both of their notice of assessments. Now, if you don't wish to send a notice of assessment to the OT or the SLP to send in to us, you can send it directly to the ALS Society. You can send it directly to equipment@als.ca. So we do have that feature if you prefer not to give it to your OT directly. So these are kind of the brackets that the funding assistance falls under. And you can see that above a certain income level, we are unable to provide funding assistance. But under that, there are different funding brackets that we would cover. There is a separate form for this on our website. So just like there's a loan application form, there's also a funding assistance form, again, online, and which will be filled out by your healthcare professional. So that's kind of what I had as far as our loan program and our funding assistance program was concerned. I hope that that was useful, and I look forward to any questions that you have on these. I'm going to pass it on now to my colleague, Tracy Ajavo, who's going to take you to the next part of our presentation.
Thank you, Rabia. So I'm going to talk quickly about our equipment donations. Equipment donations are, sorry, am I sharing my, sorry, give me 1 second. Is my screen showing now? I'm not sure.
Yes, we can see it now.
Okay, great. So equipment donations are very important for our program, and it's how we replenish our loan cupboard. In 2023, we did receive equipment donations that were valued at over $198,000. So you can imagine for our families, you know, it's very relieving because not everybody can afford all of the items that are in our loan pool. So everybody is very appreciative of the equipment donation program. Basically, the process is we have a new online form where you go on our website and it basically takes you through, like I like to call it a pre-approval. You answer a couple of questions that qualifies the donation that you're trying to donate to us. And so once that form is completed, it does come to us, and then we kind of look over to see, is this something that we can accept? So all the items that we do accept in our loan cupboard as equipment donations are everything that is in our equipment catalog, except for the items that Rabia described as small bathroom equipment. We purchased them brand new for all of our clients who are needing it as requested by the OT. So if it's a small piece of bathroom equipment, as Rabia described earlier, we cannot accept it, as well as the funding items, the communication devices, the stair glides, the ceiling lift systems, and the ADP power wheelchairs, we also cannot accept as donations. So we get a lot of queries coming in daily about, I want to say like 15 to 20 per day. That is by phone, by email, by mail. And so the applications do have to get shortlisted because there are some people who bypass the form and say, you know, they want to donate items that we cannot take. I think Rabia mentioned items that clients can use, but we just don't offer them in our loan pool. So sometimes, you know, there's like catheters, there's like, you know, safety boots. Sometimes it's even cutlery that donors are trying to donate. Unfortunately, we're not able to accept them. So we do have a short list where we look through to see, you know, what we can take, what is needed at that specific time that the donation query is coming in. And then the form comes into us, we look through it, and then we arrange to pick up with our vendors. Rabia mentioned that we do have over 20 vendors across Ontario. So depending on where the donor is located with its equipment, we do have that vendor go out and pick up the equipment. And then we do issue tax receipts for all the equipment that we do accept. I want to say from the beginning to the end of the process, which is when the query comes in, to the pickup of the donation, to the appraisal of it, to the tax receipt issuance, takes about 4 to 6 weeks. Depending on the time of year as well, it could be a little bit longer just because there's some times where we get like the volume of the donations are greater than other months of the year. Common. So like I mentioned earlier, we do give priority to the most commonly requested items. We don't. Hospital beds are something that is always going out with clients. So we always are needing, for example, items like hospital beds. We're always needing items in the summertime. We're needing a lot of like scooters, power wheelchairs, because, you know, clients want to get outdoor more often, and these items help them with that. So depending on the time that the request is coming in is when we're able to gauge, okay, can we take this at a certain time? If we do refuse donations, it's not because we don't want it. That is not the case. If it's something that we do have in our loan pool that we can accept, we are probably declining at that time because we have a lack of storage space. Sometimes we accumulate so many wheelchairs that aren't going out as quickly as beds are. So we wheelchair decline items, it's not, they do take a lot of space. And so if we do, because we don't want them, it's just because we don't have this facility across Ontario. And so lastly, items that we cannot accept. So items that we do accept that we can't accept from the loan cupboard are if it's over 5 years old. The reason being is that if it's over 5 years old, there's some manufacturers that are no longer in business. There's some pieces to items that are hard to find. Sometimes the products aren't manufactured in Canada. Sometimes it's in America. I remember we had an instance where something needed to be repaired and the parts were only available in America. So it's very hard logistically to work around the repairs, the maintenance, and everything like that when it's over 5 years old. So that's why we give that 5-year mark on that. So if you or anybody else is looking to donate, there's no cap on who can or cannot donate. We are always looking for equipment donations. So that is the link on our screen there. It's also on our website. We are very, very grateful for all of our equipment donors. So that's it for my piece. I think I need to be giving this back to Melissa.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Rabia and Tracy. What a lovely presentation. I believe that Emily has a question for you ladies.
Yes, I do. So I have a question and a comment. So I'll start with the comment first. The comment says, thank you for the compassionate support you provide. We are so grateful for the work that you do. So that's great to hear. It's great to hear that the equipment is being useful for individuals. And then I do have a question. Can any certified OT submit a request online, or does it have to be a clinic OT?
I can take that one. It can be any OT, certified OT, who is aware of your particular, who is familiar with you, who has assessed you, and can make a determination as to what is suitable and safe for you. So it does not need to be a clinic OT. Oftentimes, we find that community OTs are best placed to request certain types of equipment because they've been able to go in the home and see the space of the home. So for instance, if someone is requesting a ramp, and we do offer portable ramps, it's helpful that someone has seen the actual steps and the incline that's required before submitting the request. So absolutely, any certified occupational therapist can send us that request.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Rabia. I'm now going to switch it over and introduce Diane Tate from the Seating Clinic, and Diane's going to take us through her presentation. Diane?
Hello, everybody. I hope you can hear me. We've had a bit of an issue with the audio on my computer.
Great. Sounds great.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
So I'm with the complex adult wheelchair and seating clinic at Hamilton Health Sciences, and I am an OT. I've been an OT for quite a few years. Just to give you a brief introduction to what we're doing today, we're going to talk about the clinic, talk about the processes, what we do, and the funding models and vendor selection. Rabia has talked a little bit about ADP, and that's a large portion of what we do. There are 3 of us working in the clinic. I am the one who does the contact and most of the prescriptions for anybody who has ALS or related conditions. And we work with community partners, of course, so we work with the client and family, any caregivers. We also work very closely with the vendor of choice. So the sales consultant, we will also work with manufacturing reps, with techs. We'll work with the RT, respiratory therapist, if anybody has one of those. And then obviously with the ALS clinic, the physicians there, and with the ALS Society if it's around funding and so on. Oftentimes we will get the community OT involved if they're the one who can go into the home, because That is a limitation of our model, is we don't go into the home. We can on rare occasions, but we are hospital-based. So the role of the OT is to do the actual assessment, the clinical assessment. And so we look at physical stuff, the ability to move, what's strong, what's not so strong, what's been changing. We try to use a crystal ball to predict what is going to change. And based on that analysis, we prescribe the equipment. But when we prescribe equipment, what we're doing is we're identifying features. What features of equipment are we looking for? And we do the supportive documentation, which in the case of ADP is actually quite generic for the most part. When it comes to the vendor, their job is to respond to our equipment requests. So we identify exactly what features we need, and they apply their equipment expertise lens to identify what piece of equipment might meet that need. But it's not as straightforward as that. We go back and forth and come up with ideas, and it's definitely a team effort in figuring out what is the best option for any individual. The vendor is there to dispense the equipment with input from the OT, and it's up to the vendor to actually generate the quote and take payment. So the OT has no role in the actual billing process, and it's very important that clients understand that there's no conflict of interest, because we get nothing from this other than we get the satisfaction that we've done a really good job for the client. The whole financial transaction is between the client and the vendor. So I think this is a little bit irrelevant, this slide. We see essentially people who have complex issues related to posture and mobility. We typically deal with anything like skin, pressure injuries, any kind of respiratory equipment that has to be added to a wheelchair, same with communication devices. As I said earlier, our limitation is that we need people to be able to attend the clinic visits in Hamilton. And under the requirements of ADP, the home must be accessible. So the limit of ADP is that it is for people who require this device within their home or to get in and out of their home. For us, we need a signed physician's signature, and typically those come from the ALS clinic, and we need an indication of diagnosis. So we don't need to worry about that. The referrals do come from the physicians, and most of them know how to access, but if not, it's simply through our HHS website. In the search bar, you put in the adult clinic, adult complex wheelchair seating clinic, and the referral form does come up. In terms of our clinic philosophy, I think this is an important point. We feel that our primary role is to identify opportunities so that we can enhance someone's abilities, but also compensate for any limitations. Our job is to educate our clients on what's available, what we can put in place to help address the mobility and postural needs. And we always focus with the long game in mind. So sometimes what that means is that we might prescribe equipment that looks like it's way overprescribed for where you're at right now. But that's where we're using the crystal ball to try to identify what the future holds and what do we need to put in place to plan for that. One of the reasons we do that is that the whole funding process through ADP can be kind of onerous. And when you order everything right up front, the cost tends to be less than if you are ordering something later on and adding it onto the wheelchair. So we usually shoot for the long game. We also want to prevent secondary health and functional limitations. So when I'm talking about wounds, respiratory compromise, difficulties with swallowing, accessibility barriers, we want to try to take all of that into consideration when we're doing our assessment and our treatment planning. So what to expect? Initially, I do a telephone contact. We get an idea of where you're at, what are the needs at present, how has your progression been, what are your goals at present, and we book an initial visit. And during that visit, we talk about lifestyle factors. What does the home look like? What's accessibility? What do you like to do? What kind of equipment, because in my mind, what I'm working on is what kind of equipment is going to fit all of these factors. You know, some people are working, how to adapt the workplace with mobility equipment, how's that going to fit in, and right down to self-care. So we do a complete physical assessment, which involves getting you on a plinth. We look at balance, we look at range of motion, strength, and we also take measurements. And wheelchairs are usually prescribed to within 1 inch, so the measurements are quite important. And then we start to identify the potential configuration of equipment that will work. So that means a mobility base, whatever seating components are needed, whatever peripheral devices are needed, what kind of control. The next visit that we do is typically an equipment trial, although I have to say lately we've been combining 1 and 2 and doing equipment trials in that first visit. We do the funding documentation, so the ADP form, all 13 pages. And then the next visit is a setup visit. These are long appointments. They can be 2, sometimes 3 hours, depending on the complexity of the system. And we adjust all the parameters: armrest height, footrest height, armrest length, head support. Everything gets set up. And then we work on programming of electronics, for which we do driving, inside, outside, up and down curbs, on and off a ramp, so that we can make sure that the torque is right and the balance on the chair is right, all of those factors. And last but not least is education of clients and caregivers. And we do that all the way through the dispensing process. And we provide some written information. The vendor provides manuals on the chair, on the seating products and so on. So it's all there, but it's overwhelming. It's a huge amount of information. We're well aware of that. And so typically we ask that you bring other people with you who can learn all about the chair, pick up information that you might miss. And then what we do is we can do a follow-up phone call. We're pretty available, and so is the vendor, to take those calls. So there are often follow-up visits after this for fine-tuning of the drive controls, fine-tuning of the seating, addressing any discomfort issues, because you've got to be comfortable. And then we'll do anytime a reevaluation if we need to address any changes in function. So sometimes people start out with a joystick in one hand and they find that this hand isn't doing what they want it to do anymore, so we switch the joystick over to the other hand. We might need to change the programming on the power chair. Again, it's all based on an individual's needs, and so the prescription of additional components might be needed. Changing, say, from a hand control to a head control or a foot control, whatever we need to do. So Robbie has talked quite a bit about the different kinds of equipment that are available on loan. And typically in the seating clinic, we don't address most of the items on this page. Occasionally, we will do a manual wheelchair, usually with tilt on it. We don't do the folding power wheelchairs; they're private pay. We do the high technology power chairs for the most part. Community OT can typically prescribe the basic power chair. My only caveat there is to make sure if you're getting a power chair in the community, make sure that it is capable of taking on higher end electronics in case there's a need to change joystick control, joystick method. So as I said, we focus on the manual wheelchairs with custom features like custom seating and power tilt added onto it. We do a lot of the power chairs with tilt, recline, elevating legs, and then we do the alternate controls where needed. So when we talk about basic wheelchairs, I'm not sure this one is terribly comfortable, but that's what it used to be. And Rabia talked about these. These are all available on loan through ALS. The other place you can get really inexpensive wheelchairs if you want to purchase your own, there's a place in Niagara called For the Needy, Not the Greedy. They're only open, I think it is 3 days a week. They take in donations, refurbish, and provide them to people at a really, really discounted cost. All used equipment in various conditions, but they have a very large warehouse with a lot of equipment available to see. So Rabia talked about, again, the scooters being available. What we've seen a lot of lately is people requesting the travel buggy. Again, the scooters are available through ALS. I'm not sure about the travel buggy. I've had a lot of people purchasing them. The cautionary note is that the seating, basically you can get a 16 wide or an 18 wide. There's no real variation. They don't have great postural supports. The joystick programming doesn't exist. It's a one-size-fits-all joystick. So if you have any trouble with hand function, there's no means to adjust it. The benefits are, it is a chair that is relatively lightweight when you take it apart. You can put it into a vehicle with a fairly good sized trunk. I think the heaviest component is about 56 pounds. And a lot of people like them because they can take them out to a park, they can go places. They're rear wheel drive, so they do go through grass and so on. They don't go through really soft grass, but they'll go through grass at parks and so on and go on trails. So they're nice for that. They don't have any alteration in how gravity impacts you in these chairs. So your skin, if you're in it for a long time, could take a hit. So it's just something to be very conscious of. So these are the kinds of power wheelchairs we do. These are from 3 different manufacturers. They are, as you can see, they come in rear wheel drive, mid wheel drive, and front wheel drive configurations. Each one has its purpose. The rear and front wheel drive chairs have a longer turning radius. The vast majority of people these days are choosing mid wheel drive because it can turn on its own axis, which means that for in-homes, it's very easy to get around into tighter spaces. You can also get a much narrower base on these ones, which also helps with access. The front wheel drive is great if you're somebody who, say, lives rural and you have uneven ground or hills that you have to climb in your chair. Not saying that it would go out on a farmer's field, but on roadways that are a little bit rougher and so on. The rear wheel drive, a lot of people just like rear wheel drive. They like how it pushes you forward. Again, trialing the chairs is always something that we do. So we give people the option to try different configurations, and it's all based on feel and comfort level with a given device. So when we talk about power dynamic seating functions, the first one we talk about is tilt. And if you look at this picture here, you can see that the seat to back angle on this one happens to be at 90. And if you were to take that chair and tilt it back flat, that seat angle would stay at 90, seat to back, because the hip angle is unchanged. It shifts your weight onto your back and onto your lower legs. It helps stabilize the pelvis. And the most important thing is when you are struggling with some fatigue and so on, it gets you into a position where you're more relaxed. You know, we've all sat in lazy boy chairs, and you're actually able to use gravity to open your trunk up, extend, and it gives you a more relaxed posture. It also takes the weight off your bottom. So when you use recline, you are opening up your hip angle, and which is a good thing because now you're distributing your weight over a much larger area, especially if the legs can come up. The only problem is that as you come back up, the tendency is for your bottom to slide forward, which results in shearing of the tissues. So there's techniques that can be taught around how to use the power dynamic seating so that the shearing does not occur. Power elevating legs are great for edema management, even fatigue management. Sitting with your feet down all day, it doesn't matter if you're sitting in an office chair, feet down all day, your legs start to feel heavy, they feel uncomfortable. So this can help with that. But if you have hamstring tightness where you know, people who can't touch their toes like me, doing this is probably not the best idea because it will just pull your bottom forward when you try to raise the legs. But we assess for that during the assessment. Something that a lot of people are going for these days is seat elevation. It can be used with tilt, recline, and legs. You can have a chair that's fully loaded. It's great for social interactions. You can reach kitchen cupboards. You can reach for a glass and get your own glass of water instead of having to have something sitting out on the counter all the time. The only problem is it's not ADP funded. I believe the cost on this is about $3,300. So that full cost is the client's responsibility. Oftentimes, if you have third-party insurance, you know, Manulife, Green Shield, whatever, we will roll. I'll make sure that the vendor, when they prepare their quote, rolls the cost of the seat elevation into the base price of the wheelchair, and it goes through, that way we can get it through the insurance coverage. So in terms of power chair controls, the things that we deal with are a basic joystick. We can do a joystick that you don't have to push so hard to get it to go. We can program the joystick so that instead of pushing forward, you pull backwards to go forward. So we can do funky things that way. There can be an alternate joystick location. So some people use their chin, some people use their wrists. You can put a foot control on. A head array where you have a little thing around your head and it has proximity switches. The closer you come to the switch, the more you activate the switch. Fiber optic switches, so they require minimal movement and no effort. Sip and puff, for anybody who remembers Christopher Reeve, he used a sip and puff chair where you actually sip in through and blow out through a straw. On each chair, there are multiple drive options, so you program it differently. So drive 1 might be indoors, slow, drive 2, indoors, faster. You might have a drive that is low speed, high torque to do ramps. You might have an attendant control, so that's on the back of the chair, and then you program that separately. Typical chairs have 4 drive options. And then autocorrect is something we put on chairs to help maintain a straight line. If you're driving along and you hit a curb cut and you don't want to slide the chair to slide down that, it'll autocorrect and keeps going straight. So that's useful when you're on head controls or where your fine motor isn't as good and you need to not have to correct all the time. All these parameters can be programmed in: speed, turning, braking, acceleration. We can do tremor dampening. We talked about those. So when we're talking about what we choose and why we choose what we choose, we look at the power chair as having a base and then having seating on top of it. So the base, we look at the weight capacity, the size, does it fit into the home, what are our clearances. We also look at the electronics capability with that base weight. The anticipated environment, the turning radius, the weight of the base. So some people in their chair is 450 pounds. They might be 300 pounds. So you have to think about what's the weight capacity on the home. And then transportation method. Are we looking at a van? Are we looking at alternate parallel transit systems? Because you certainly cannot put one of these devices in a car. You can put it in a van, but the van would need to be adapted with a lift. Ramps are never recommended for this. We also look at what kind of seating components do we have to put on it. So on some chairs, if you need to do specific seating components, it makes the chair actually longer. We look at adaptability for future changes. And we talked about the drive method. And we talked about that already. In terms of seating supports, what we do is we talk about hybrid concept because we're dealing with multiple manufacturers. So you might have a base that is from Permobile with a cushion that's from Roho, a backrest that's from Blake Medical, a headrest that's from Stealth. So it's a hybrid concept and everything has to be made to mesh together. But we do try to minimize the complexity of installation because the more complex it is, the longer it takes and the fiddlier it is. This is just a sample of some of the cushions. You can see that some of them are made of layers, some of them, the Roho, to be honest, is our go-to. We put most people on it because we can adjust the levels, we can achieve comfort on that cushion, and we provide education on how to use it. Some people do prefer a foam cushion. Again, we try these out and see what's most comfortable and go with that. Same with backrest. So some people need more support along the sides. Some people need less. You know, you want less because it's harder to breathe if you have too much around you. Or you want more because you're leaning to one side and when you go to reach for your joystick, you start to lean over. So let's give you more. Again, we've got a Roho back that we can utilize, Blake Medical. There are hundreds, literally hundreds of cushions and back supports on the market. Accessories that we often use, up on the top there, that's a bolster that we'll put in with a Roho to help guide the leg position. That's a Scotty tray down the bottom that you can, it actually installs between the legs under the cushion and it just pops off. It'll hold a laptop, a small laptop. And as needed, we might make a custom top for that built out of Lexan. Arm supports that have the pillow top gel in them, and then foot supports to hold feet where they need to be. So in terms of funding, Rabia had talked about this to some degree, but in order to access ADP funding, you have to be assessed by an ADP authorizer. So I'm an ADP authorizer, have been since the mid-'80s, and some OTs out in the community who do the home visits and who prescribe equipment aren't actually authorizers, and they'll have to bring in another OT to do that authorization. It's better if you have somebody doing the whole process just because it's more seamless, and obviously when you know the full program, you're better able to access all that's available in it. We do work with third-party insurance. We'll write letters of support, but we do ask that the client be the one who makes the initial calls to get paperwork, and then we just provide that support. ALS Society, obviously, that's been talked about, and I've had quite a few people who set up a GoFundMe, and with that they get the client portion on the chair. So to access ADP, you need a valid health card number. It's expected that you will need the equipment for 6 months or longer. It's not income-based, so it doesn't matter what your income is. And if you are on ODSP, which some people are, ODSP automatically pays the 25%. If you're not, you have approximately a 25% coverage. And when we say approximately, it's because accessories that you might choose that are not on the system, you are responsible for the coverage of that. And the other thing is that ADP doesn't cover the cost of batteries, and batteries are hideously expensive. They're about $1,200 now for a set of batteries. And as I said, you need an ADP authorizer, and the vendor also has to be an ADP vendor. So these power chairs are that we do most of are specifically within the central equipment pool, which is administered by Motion on contract from the Ministry of Health. So if you want a chair that has power tilt, power recline, those kinds of features, you have to use Motion if you want to access ADP. If your chair is used less than 3 years, the chair may well be eligible for a rebate, and so you send it back to the pool, and then they issue a rebate. Again, ADP authorization is required. So the process, I mean, we've talked about most of this, but you do the assessment with the authorizer. The authorizer completes the funding form. The vendor actually uploads that form through a portal to the Ministry of Health. At this point, the average return is about 3 to 4 weeks. Some of them we're getting back in a week. Some of them are taking 6 weeks. It all depends on what's on the form and whether there's custom items. They can delay the processing, but oftentimes those are what the crystal ball says we need, and so we want them on there. Usually once the chair is all approved, the funding is all approved, the vendor orders the chair, and delivery is in 2 to 6 weeks, depending on which manufacturer is chosen. So these are some of the questions that we get through Seating Clinic, and they're really very valid. Can it go in my car? Again, it depends on what you choose. The manual chairs, the transport chairs, they all go in your car. The power chairs do not. What is the warranty? If it's a central equipment pool chair, there is a limited 3-year warranty on it. If it breaks down, the vendor will come out and do a service call, and there's no charge on that if it's within the first 30 days, or if you need adjustments in the first 30 days, but typically that gets extended at about 90 days. They will service it for you. Do I need routine service for it? Yeah, it's like a car. It needs to have routine service. So at least once a year, it needs to be checked up on and oiled, and just check up on the electronics and so on. If I'm not able to use the joystick but ordered one, we can look at that and make adaptations as needed. Can I go out in the rain and the snow? Yes, you can, as long as it's not pelting down, and as long as you cover the joystick with a plastic bag and try to put a cape over the back of the chair where the electronics are. Same with snow, but these things don't have snow tires. They skitter around. They're not great in snow. Can I pull a trailer with it? No. I have seen people doing this, and what happens is the motors end up burning out very quickly. The cost. So the cost of the power base with just tilt is around $20,000. A fully loaded with tilt, recline, power elevating legs, so all the items that are automatically covered by ADP, you're looking around 26 to 28,000. Again, it depends on the base to some degree. If it is fully loaded and you add on features such as power elevating, you're up to 31, 32,000. Will my chair go over the grass? As I mentioned earlier, the rear-wheel drive and front-wheel drive chairs are best if you're in an outdoor environment a lot. They pull the chair through or push the chair through. Sometimes if it's a rear-wheel drive, you get some sort of snow plowing where it pushes from the back, but the front wheels get stuck and get bound. So if it's a lot of outdoor, we often recommend the front-wheel drive because that pulls the chair through. you need a ventilator, we can integrate that. Can I wash my cushion? Yes. Backrest? Sure. Power chair? No. They have to be hand wiped, hand washed. Yeah, we've had a few people try to power wash their power chair and it doesn't go well. I keep sliding out. What can I do to stop that? You call your OT. That's where we need to look at what your positioning is. What are you sitting on? How is the chair set up? What can we do to stop the sliding? Because you don't want to be sliding because that's going to give you potential pressure areas. Can I store it in my shed or in my garage? So this is a difficult question. And the reason is that under ADP, the expectation is if the ADP is going to fund you, the device is meant to be used in the home. And so if you're going to store it in your shed or your garage, chances are you're not using it in your home. You're not eligible for ADP funding. So if you're going to do that, don't tell us. Can I store it in my shed? Yes, but don't store it in your shed or your garage in winter because the batteries will deplete very quickly in the cold. And at this point, I'm open for questions.
Hi, Diane. I do have a question for you. And it is, how can someone find a seating clinic in their area if they're not in the Hamilton area?
So the challenge with this is that there aren't a lot of seating clinics in Ontario anymore. There is one in London. There is one at Shaver, but they are limited, and I don't believe they see clients with ALS. I think it's just their own inpatient stream that they see as outpatients. There is or was one at Sunnybrook. So typically calling OTs who are in the community, they will often know who is doing seating in their area. There are private authorizers out there, so OTs who are working in private practice who have the skills to do these chairs, and they are available and out there, but that's a private pay cost. Yeah, Ottawa has a seating clinic, I believe. Ottawa Rehab Center has a seating clinic. But beyond that, I really don't know of any seating clinics left in Ontario.
Thank you so much.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, so we're gonna throw it over now to the ladies from the Possibility Project, Rebecca, Chris, and Abby, and I'm gonna make you guys presenters. Does it matter which one of you are presenters? Who's sharing their screen? Chris? Okay, perfect.
I'll be going first with Rebecca and
Oh,
Abby
okay.
potentially piping in.
All right,
Yeah.
well, there you go.
Oh, so Emily, just a quick tech question. My apologies. I thought that somebody from your group was going to put our presentation up. If not, we have the ladies here who, my apologies about that. I thought it was going to come up.
You just have to, you'll run your own presentation. So if you just want to share your screen, you're a presenter, so we'll be able to see your presentation. So just
okay, wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Take your time.
I am not the techie one in the group, so thank goodness for Rebecca and Abby.
It's okay.
Abby, are you okay to do that, or do you want me to call them up?
Yeah, sure, I can do that. Am I okay to just share my screen just right on? Do I have that availability, Emily?
I go ahead and share it. Right now I have Chris as the presenter, but I can change it if it's to you, Abby. Here, Abby, I changed it to you. You're all good.
Okay, that's.
My apologies, I misunderstood.
All good. All right.
You know what? Actually, I don't think I'll be able to.
Do you want me to send you the slides, Abby?
It's not that. It's just my MacBook. Rebecca, are you able to share the screen?
Maybe I'm just opening up the slides to make sure that I've got them, and then I can see if I can share.
Thanks so much, Rebecca.
Oh no, it's making me jump through privacy hoops. So just a second while I see what's happening.
Oh, apologies, everybody.
Yeah, it's doing a strange permissions things for me too, Abby. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to do it. We might just have to go with
Yeah,
it.
if you guys want to start talking about it, Chris, if you want to send me on through email, I can pull it up while you guys are chatting and talking.
Okay, wonderful. Apologies.
And Chris, I can send over the slides if you just wanted to begin.
Okay, that would be great. Thank you. Okay, well, hi everybody. Thank you for being here. Sorry for that little little break there. I misinterpreted the slide part of our presentation. And thank you so much to ALS Canada and their team for this opportunity to share our initiative with you. Our initiative is called Possibilities Project Plus. And to give you a brief history of how I got involved and where we came to be today, I had a spinal cord injury 36 years ago, so I've been a wheelchair user for 36 years. I completed my rehabilitation at Parkwood Institute here in London, and then was fortunate enough to be hired on as the clinical dietitian in the regional rehabilitation program at Parkwood, where I'd done my own rehab, specifically in the spinal cord injury and brain injury programs, but the stroke program, specialized geriatric services, and other areas. So about 14 years ago, we're sitting in spinal cord injury rounds with the physician and tire teams and, doing our best as clinicians to help the people coming through our program. But there were so many people who had injuries or illnesses that resulted in neurological conditions who could not afford the basic needs related to their illness or injury. So we started at a very, very grassroots level, raising money to purchase equipment for people or to pay the 25% that ADP doesn't cover for a new wheelchair, as an example. So the initiative started as Possibilities Project without the plus. We continue to fundraise today for our Parkwood Institute community for people in financial need. But once we got started, people heard about what we were doing, and I would receive countless emails and phone calls from people wanting to donate their equipment. Either it was equipment that they personally didn't need anymore, or it was a family member who had equipment and wanted it to go to a good home. And literally people would say, we cannot give our equipment away. So a group of us, a very small group to start, got together to say, what can we do about this? We know there are people in need of equipment who literally go without. We know there are people who have equipment to donate and can't find a route for that donation. And that combined means there's all kinds of excellent, viable assistive devices, equipment going into landfills. So it's a human issue, it's an environmental issue. So what can we do about that? So with partnership with Spinal Cord Injury Ontario and having the opportunity to talk to fabulous organizations like ALS Canada and other organizations provincially that we've spoken to, including consumers with lived experience of disabilities and their caregivers, to really inform what we're doing. So the big gist, and there are many arms of Possibilities Project Plus, but at its core is our website. And I wish you could see our slides, and hopefully they're coming. But we have sent our electronic materials with our website information to ALS Canada, and we also have hard copy information for people who might not be able to get information through computer. So basically what we are doing through our website, it's really an equipment exchange platform. So linking people in need of equipment with people who have equipment to donate. No money exchanges hands. We do acknowledge that there are people who can't afford to give their equipment away for free or to donate. And there are other platforms where people can sell their equipment. Ours is no money exchange at all, linking people in need with people who have the equipment. And our website allows people to post equipment that they want to donate, for people to go on and search for equipment that they need. And if people go on our site and don't see what they need, they can put a note in to say what they're looking for, and we'll be notified if something comes up. We have no limitations in terms of what equipment can be posted. So, you know, when I was listening to the other presenters present and making note of some of the items that cannot be received by donation through ALS Canada, those are things that could be posted for donation on our website. And as throughout our conversations with ALS Canada and listening to the presentations today, I see that there's a real sort of interface of collaboration and support, and the people that we're trying to serve are all very, very similar, and hopefully bringing it together and letting everybody know about Possibilities Project Plus will maybe fill in some of the additional gaps, because for those of us with disabilities, we know that there are so many gaps. So the three key missions of Possibilities Project Plus is, first of all, to meet the needs of people in financial need. And there's been lots of chat about the assistive devices program, and there are many limitations. We know that there are so many categories of equipment that ADP doesn't fund at all. And when it comes to mobility equipment like wheelchairs, they'll fund the 75%. Some people can't afford that additional 25%, unless you're on ADP and some other programs. But if you need a new wheelchair within that period of time, sometimes you might not be able to get the funding within the time period that ADP outlines. And then, of course, meeting the needs of the donors who really want their items to be rehomed and to keep things out of the landfill, absolutely. Our group, which started off as kind of 4 or 5 of us chatting during the pandemic about what can we do, has grown to a large group of essentially all volunteers, with the exception of our amazing web designer. And it's fueled and energized by university students from University of, or I guess Western University, now it was UWO when I was there, Western University, McMaster, Waterloo, I believe, a lot of students fueling this, with researchers collaborating with clinical clinicians, and as well as our leaders to really support this and make this go forward. So we are an electronic platform, a website. Yay! Thank you. That is awesome. I think we're actually, if you could go to number 4, please, Emily, if that's you who's scrolling down. Thank you. And this is a list of some of the equipment that will appear on our website over time. And the more people that use it and share, and equipment that is exchanged, the greater amount in categories of equipment you will see. This is not an exhaustive list of what can be shared from person to person. And next slide, please. So for those of you like I am, who is really horrible and stressed out by technology, I know that I'm not the only one. I feel like I am sometimes, but we have our agent team. We have a number of different teams that make up the Possibilities Project Plus full team. Our agent team is phenomenal and is available to help with so many things. So on a future slide, you'll see that there's a number of ways of contacting us. Well, we do have our website, and for those who are great at navigating, you can go on and see all the wonderful things that are on there, including really informative blogs specific to people with a variety of disabilities. Some are specific to spinal cord injury, but there's so much really good information there in our blogs and our resource sections as well. Just really good to peruse. But we can also be contacted by telephone, and we can also be contacted by our email address, which appears here. Our agent team can be contacted. Say, for instance, you don't have access to a computer, or you have access, but you're not really good at it, and you're looking for person-to-person contact to help you post your device that you wish to donate, or to help you locate a piece of equipment that you're wishing to find. And also just helping to navigate the system, and collaboratively amongst our team, we have a lot of expertise, and we could provide some assistance in other areas, finding resources, etc. And Rebecca or Abby, is there anything you want to share about the agent team at this point? Okay, next slide, please. So this is how to contact Possibilities Project Plus by email, by telephone, and we do have our website. We're also aware of the fact that some people may require assistance in other languages. And if that is your situation, or the situation of somebody that you know who's looking for assistance, we will do our very best to meet the communication needs. Our team is very large and very, very global. And as I say, we'll do our best to assist in other languages where possible. That was very short, sweet thumbnail sketch. Abby and Rebecca, anything to add, elaborate on?
No, I think that was great, Chris. I just wanted to say too, we are working out some of the kinks as we go forward, and we're working really closely with the leaders here at Parkwood Institute. And as of September 12th, we're now officially a official affiliate of St. Joseph's Healthcare in London, Ontario, which has been really exciting for our team. So just working with the departments here to make sure that this project does expand and really cater to the local community and also around Ontario.
Thank you, Abby. And for those of you tuning in who do live in London and area, we have a very small storage area right now at Parkwood Institute that we are hoping to grow at some point, having a little bit of a storefront. That is not in existence right now, but 2 years ago, this was just an idea, and now it's where it is today. We continue to work to meet as many people's needs as possible in a variety of different ways. But the website is provincial, and as more people become aware of it, start to spread the word, start to utilize it, our categories of equipment will absolutely grow.
Yeah, something I'm going to add to that was, as I was listening to the presentation as well at the start, I think it's really incredible what ALS does for everyone, but there are certain devices and certain things that aren't covered in your exchange program. So I really see that there's a way for us to support each other by we can be the source for the items that cannot go to the ALS program. We can expand that a little bit, whether it be for the age of the device or whether it be for the devices that they can't store at ALS. We might be your source for other items. As Chris said, our online exchange program is free, but we also, SCIO has a great marketplace group on Facebook where if you have an assistive device that you are looking to sell for a little money, that resource is there for you as well. So we understand that sometimes you do need to recoup some of the expenses of a device. So we also have that option with our partner SCIO. And another piece that's really cool about what we have going on at Parkwood, we are constantly doing lots of different forms of research. So we also have constant research studies going on. If you're interested in participating in different programs, we can also be your resource for those types of things. One of the initiatives at Parkwood, we have a free online adaptive fitness center. If you're looking for free online fitness classes, we can set you up with that as well. So I see many ways in which we could work together between our two organizations, but please reach out to us if you're interested in anything like that as well.
Thank you, Rebecca. Very good points. And we are happy to take questions.
I don't think we have questions. You were very thorough in your presentation and answered most of the ones that we had. So thank you very much. I want to thank everyone today for joining. It was such a great, informative presentation, and it does definitely show how we all work together. So thank you so much. With that, we're going to wrap up this series. So again, thank you so much to Rabia and Tracy from ALS Canada, Diane from the Seating Clinic, and the lovely ladies from the Possibility Project, Rebecca, Abby, and Chris. Thank you all so much. And this will be uploaded into our ALS Canada resource library for future viewing, or if you want to look at any of the slides or have any of the contact for the presenters, it will be up in a couple days. With that, I will say goodbye and have a lovely day to everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.